Many people have problems with art and not with reality.
So why is art different?
It's pretty simple, right?
This is knowledge, this is thinking, this is thought.
Yeah, it does something strange with your head.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair.
Bring it.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair. My name is Ando. Hello, friends, and perhaps new listeners. Today we're going outside the normal format of the program. It's in honor of our new collaboration with the Chart Art Fair here in Copenhagen, which jumps off for the 5th time here in just a few days, on Friday to be exact. And as I said, we are entering into this new collaboration with them, which I'm personally really excited about. So I'll be lurking around the fair, doing a lot of recordings, and then for the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing content from the talks, so stay tuned. Today's show is a warm-up of sorts. I got to sit down with some of the founding galleries of the fair and with the director, all of whom I will introduce shortly. And we ended up with a sort of oral history of Chart from some of the different actors involved. It's a fitting episode to celebrate the first 5 years of Chart, and it was very enlightening for me to learn about how the fair came about, some of the thoughts behind it, and some of the guiding philosophies. There were some things I did not expect to hear coming from people designing a commercial fair. So let's get straight into it. Enjoy. So the story of the birth of Chart starts here with the gallery owner Susanne Ottesen, who took the initiative to contact 4 of her colleagues and float the idea of starting this new fair. This is Susanne.
Everybody wanted it. Everybody could see that the artist wanted it, the galleries for sure wanted it, and the whole massive interest on Copenhagen. But people, we could actually invite people, and they would come because Copenhagen became sexy. So it's born out of a need from everybody. It's not just an idea from me or a few of my colleagues. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been such a success.
And this is another founder of the fair, gallery owner Klaus Andersen.
Because it was actually because Art Copenhagen became, what should I say, a little bit too local, and not to diss Art Copenhagen at all, actually, because the idea came out of me talking to Mark Sladen when he was the director of Kunsthalle Charlottenborg. If he was into that, and he actually was, then nothing really happened until Susanne called me one day and said she had the idea as well.
I said for years that the young ones should do it. I've done my things. I've worked with politics around art for years, for generations. And I said, you have to do it. You're the young ones. And nobody did it. And in the end, I said, okay.
Fuck it.
Yes, I do it. Yes. And then I called my colleagues and said, do you want to, shall we do this together? And the colleagues, you all know that it's David Risley and Jesper and Bo Bjerregaard and Klaus Andersen, and we have all 5 of us very different galleries, and we are different generations and approach to things, and
it's a good mix.
It's very, very important, and for us personally, it has been a gift to. We know each other very well now, and it's for me. Knowing Jesper and David Risley, we would never have been close,
right.
And we are now. So it's a benefit, a personal benefit out of it.
This is Jesper L., founder and director of V1 Gallery.
We were at a point where that seemed viable. It would still be a risk, but it seemed like a good idea. And at the same time, we felt that Charlottenborg was struggling. It needed funding, it needed direction, and it needed a public.
Right, the timing was perfect because there was a lot of public attention on the fact that Charlottenburg was having a hard time.
Yeah, and we thought, well, this would be great. Let's approach Charlottenburg and see if they would have us there, because that would mean that we could probably help them, both with gathering a new audience and also financially, of course, because we rent Charlottenburg and we share also every ticket. We share half and half with them, so it would give them a financial boost. And I think that is in everybody that lives in Copenhagen's interest, that Charlottenburg is a strong institution and an important institution, especially now also with its relationship to the Art Academy. So it was it seemed like that it would be challenging, but it would be a great platform to kind of set this adventure off on.
So after deciding to start a new fair, they of course needed professional help, and they found this gentleman by the name of Simon Fries.
I was for many, many years working with restaurants, and quite fast I started through the network I got in there to do events on the side with a lot of people from both the fashion world, but also someone from the architecture world and the design world, and someone from the art world. So the reason why I'm saying this is because I was doing something for a fashion brand called Acne, or Acne in English, and I was standing with physically a broken arm, trying to be involved and running this opening of a couple of stores in Denmark. And there was 2 DJs playing for that opening, and that was Trandemøller and a guy called Jesper L, who was from V1. He owns V1. And I think he felt that that I did a good job managing this with this stupid broken arm. And a lot of it was, of course, hospitality. There was a lot of important people coming, and also just project managing the whole setup. Jesper was the one introducing me, or introducing my name to the others, but some of them already knew me as well. That was how I got in, and then they called me to a meeting where, of course, I had to tell about who I was, and then they actually called me the same day and asked if I could start, because at that time it was 5 months to chart, and chart was not. It was, we haven't done it before, so everything was a bit up in the air. Of course, they had a lot of ideas about how it should be, but that was kind of it.
Here we have Jesper L again.
The idea that we were all these galleries that would travel to Basel or to New York or to Cologne or to Paris or to London to exhibit, and this idea of saying like, okay, we're all going out there and all trying to promote the region and what is happening in the region and trying to make it relevant. Why don't we invite people to Copenhagen instead?
Right. Instead of using all that effort out and about in the world.
Yeah, we would still be doing that, but once a year, why not try and put the same effort that we're trying to put into going to Basel or London? Why not put the same effort into our home town, basically, and say and we discussed as well, would it be better in Stockholm or would it be better in Oslo? But looking at it, it seemed like the Danish Copenhagen-based galleries were more out in the world than our colleagues at that time in Sweden and Norway. So we felt that it was a natural place to pick it as a Nordic platform.
So after getting this fair going, they needed to design and personalize it. This is Klaus Andersen again.
Also, we wanted to show, let's say, the best of Scandinavia. Then the second point was not to do the ABC mistake, was to say that the local galleries were not allowed to have any openings or dinners during the art fair, which means that the other Scandinavian galleries, they will be a much closer part of what's happening during that weekend, and they shouldn't be afraid that the local galleries are basically stealing their collectors and so on. So we would kind of be together for those 3 days. I know that for example, in many other fairs, then when the fair is closed, there's shitloads of dinners in the local galleries, and then you can basically try to compete with that or try to get collectors to come, which are probably invited to dinners elsewhere and so on. And that's a little bit not so nice thing about it. Huh?
Right, it separates out, it splinters off immediately as soon as the doors close.
Exactly. And I think that has been a huge advantage in terms of the whole atmosphere at the fair. Also for the collectors, actually, I don't think they're missing visiting the local galleries necessarily. They get to meet other collectors, they get to meet also the local galleries and other galleries, whatever, during the dinners and during those 3 days.
The choice of location has been very significant in shaping the vibe of Chart, but there's actually more to it than that. This is Susanna Ottesen again.
Doing it in Charlottenborg, we would also open up Charlottenborg. We would put it in the center of Copenhagen and force people to, stay in the center of Copenhagen. And the way we have made it without
there's no
normal booths, we tell people that you're going to be in this room. We tell our colleagues there are 4 galleries. You have to speak together. Of course, you have that corner, you have that corner, you have that corner. But how you place the furnitures, it's up to you. We asked Montana to do furnitures for us. So every furniture, nobody is allowed to bring in their own fancy chair. We want everybody to join our dinners. All our colleagues, all the people coming in from abroad. So we do things together. The quite opposite of how a normal fair is. Our colleagues were a little unsecure in the beginning about the sharing thing. What is that?
Right.
Especially Swedes. They hate to share things. I don't know if I should say that. But they are a little uncomfortable on that.
Well, it goes against the usual fair format also.
It does. Absolutely. But we also put in, personal things from Danish side. Normally when I go to a fair, if I go to market in Stockholm, for instance, just to stay in the Nordic countries, then on Saturday, all the galleries in Stockholm, they do their vernissage, or they do their dinners, or their breakfast, or their whatever parties, and we just sit there
and everything
stuff.
goes poof and dissipates into the town.
So it was rule number 1 from the very beginning, and I think it's the only fair in the world where that is a rule, is that not any of the Danish galleries who participate in the fair are allowed to do anything special in the gallery. Of course, we have our shows. We put up a great show at the time when the fair is there, and we invite people and they're welcome to come, but we do no breakfast, no brunches, no dinners, no openings, nothing.
Do you guys have a grip on who they are? I'm going to let them take over from here. This is Simon Fries again.
Actually, what we tried to tell all the galleries the first year, all the participating galleries, this is done on collaboration. You're not here to compete against each other. It's not my collector or your collector. We're not building any booths. You're exhibiting in a Kunsthalle, so it's actually we're working on the premises of the art, trying to show this more of an exhibition than singular booths. So
it's an open floor plan.
Exactly. So you have to collaborate. If you have 2 galleries in the same room, you don't have a wall separating them. You're actually collaborating. That means also that if a collector comes in or a curator comes into your booth, then they're also practically or literally standing in my colleague's booth, and that kind of creates a new way of approaching your potential clients as well.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, the galleries were like, no, hey, I'm not sharing my best client, and I'm not, because everything we're doing around the fair, also dinners, etc., everybody's eating together, so it's not Simon dinner or Alexander dinner or an Andreas dinner or Isabella dinner just to talk about gallery, because normally at other art fairs you have dinners separately from each gallery happening around the city.
Sure.
But here you actually eat everybody together, and people were like, but I'm not going to share my clients because my client is my clients and your client is your client. But what you realized after trying it once is actually that my best client is always loyal to me, but maybe your best client could be my new relation. And that really worked.
We wanted an art fair because it's our business is commercial, but we also wanted an art fair that could facilitate all these other things that are super important to our work. That there's a interesting and intellectual dialogue about art. That there is meeting point where commercial and institutional and private interests kind of merge, where artists can meet curators, where galleries can meet curators. So it was very important that it would not just be like a normal art fair, that it would be a more community-based thing, and I mean that in a global sense of the word community, that it would be about art. There would be space for commerce, me selling a painting or a sculpture or a video, but there would also be equally an opportunity for people to connect and talk. Yeah. So yes, Chart is an art fair, but I would say it's also a lot of other things.
On top of that, we wanted to, let's say, use what Copenhagen has to offer, which is, of course, at the moment, especially food. How could we incorporate that somehow? This was why we were doing these food stalls in the beginning, but then not to make them like whatever, total random food stalls. Then we had the idea of asking architects to do temporary pavilions, basically.
Did all this come from the meetings before you even started? You guys really started fleshing out the idea? Or was it much more basic in the beginning?
I think it came before we actually started. I think actually maybe in the beginning we were just asking some architects. Now it's more like a competition, because the School of Architecture were happy about it and wanted and then we could give the young architects an opportunity to do something. Yeah. Then also we had this music and the social thing that developed a little bit more over the years.
Right. I mean, last year you guys had you had Peaches come play, and there was a huge party, and it was crazy, and
Exactly. That was maybe topped it last year to an extent where it became half art fair, half rock festival.
Yeah.
And we're trying to lower that a little bit this year.
It was a little crazy.
It was too crazy, actually. Yeah. I mean, fair enough. But it's also, I think, the good thing about it is that we probably attract a lot of people that we wouldn't attract to an art fair.
Right.
And then hopefully they get a feeling, some of them, that the art world is actually a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
A lot of things is happening, both for music and whatever, architecture, and it could also be whatever, poetry, readings, whatever, which we haven't enrolled yet, but it could be a little bit of all those artistic fields that could be merged more naturally together. So it doesn't necessarily have this super commercial look. Of course it is an art fair, and it should also be and have to be.
Some people were skeptical about it. It was also like, oh, but why should I share like my best collector or my best museums or so forth? Why should I share them with the next guy? And we were like, but listen, if we all share, then we will all at some point have the same benefit, And it was important to kind of make a flat, kind of almost social democratic structure around it, where you invite all these people and then you treat them equally. You don't, everybody is joining at the same time, at the same table. We talk together, and I think something very interesting has come out of that. Also, people attending our talks program and talking at the talks program, they want to come back and they want to stay like for the whole weekend. In the beginning, where they didn't know it, they would just, have an idea that they should fly in like they always do. I mean, for a big museum curator, talking at an art fair is not the most prestigious thing you can do.
Not usually high on the list.
But here, all of a sudden, we had people like when they'd been in Copenhagen for 6 hours, they were like, okay, guys, can you help us change the plane tickets? We will stay until it closes Sunday, because all of a sudden they were meeting colleagues and artists and from all over, and kind of in this relaxed atmosphere where people actually, that's where you have the good conversations, when you feel that it's nice to be there. It's not just because you're paid or feel obliged to be there.
And it's not in a convention hall.
No.
Which a lot of art fairs are.
I think that of course, Charlottenburg is such a beautiful venue, and you have this beautiful combination because it's with the art academy, so you have this beautiful combination of rich history, and then you have the avant-garde right next to it, which I love, that it's like it has such a tradition, but it's also where you have all the youngest artists in Copenhagen experimenting.
Right, the fuck you crowd is right there next to you.
Exactly, which I love.
I had some guests coming in for the first time 2 years ago, and their comment was that it was fun. There was the whole vibe around it, was that the loving of art. Everybody loves art. Even artists can stay in it.
Who hate art fairs also.
Normally you never see an artist go into an art fair because they hate it.
Yeah.
They only come if they have to go, and they hang around, and they because we have this, you have all this we have built up around the fair. To make it a place where you can meet people and hang out and have fun.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. And some of my guests said that it reminded them of the 70s. That
Interesting.
I even had a guest who said she hadn't had so much fun in doing what she loves to do since the 70s.
Wow.
And that's
and that was a feeling like in the 70s it was more open, more cooperation, more...
Yes, and of course it's commercial. And it is not that we want to hide. I mean, I have a gallery. I live from selling art. And I mean, that's what I do. I present art and I sell it so the artist can live and continue to do art.
Yeah.
And we're all working hard to do that.
That a lot of art fairs can seem a bit boring, to be honest. But the word they use about Chart is actually that they have fun being here. And we really like to stick to that.
Well, I mean, the size of the fair is both to your advantage and disadvantage. You have no extra space whatsoever. It's completely packed, and so you have to be extremely selective about who and what you work with.
Yeah.
In that case, but that also does create that kind of intimacy where, I go to Photo Paris every year. It's kind of a shit show. I love it, but after about 2 hours, you're completely blown out. You can't small talk anymore. You don't know where you are. It's too much.
Yeah.
So in that sense, having a smaller space is really an advantage, but it must also be hard because you have to say no to things you also actually think would be a good thing to invite in.
Yeah, I mean, we decided already from the first year that we wanted to focus on Nordic galleries because we felt that there was quality enough to use or to work with the amount of galleries we had space for. And also at the same time, a lot of the people that you're inviting from outside of this region, their most valuable asset is time.
Yeah.
And they are invited to, you've got someone told me that you've got around 255 substantial art fairs throughout the year. That means more than 3 or 4 a week.
That's so many.
Exactly. And therefore, for us, it's super important that actually they were feeling something different here. And when you're going to this region, then you could actually see some of the best galleries gathered here, so that if you are a person coming from outside, you don't have to travel to 4 or 5 different countries. You can actually see everything here. And that feedback has been really good from outside. But at the same time, a lot of galleries outside this region has approached us if they could participate. But here we're really strict and are sticking to our kind of narrative where we say that we don't want to work with galleries outside the region.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of galleries in the region also that would like to take part, and there isn't space for that either.
Exactly.
And in fact, there's a second fair that's sprung up because the demand is so high.
Yeah.
Which is, I see it as a positive thing that happened from the fact that you guys started Chart.
Definitely.
Some other people decided to start something else too, which is Code. And that really showed how much desire there was for a different kind of art fair than the one that was here when I first arrived 10 years ago.
And I think you're totally right. I mean, first of all, I see it the same way as you're seeing it. I think there was, of course, a need for it or people asking for it. And I think it's great. We think it's great that there's more happening. And we also see it as a reaction to us starting up something, definitely.
And I wouldn't say that you couldn't do another fair and it could look in another way, or now code
Now
is
there is another fair.
There is another fair. It's fantastic. In my opinion, it opens up. It just shows that we are right.
No, I thought it was also interesting to hear that you guys are a non-profit.
Yeah.
I don't know how common that is in a fair model either.
I think actually the only other fair I know that is non-profit is an art fair in Basel called Liste.
So why did you guys why that format?
These 5 owners did not start this up to earn money. So they did in the manifest, in the structure, they wrote in that if there was a surplus, it has to go to the next year's running, and if there was a minus, then the 5 owners will of course have to cover that minus. And the reason why we did this structure is because then you can do different things differently. I mean, normally with an art fair, you have, sorry to say, 9 out of 10, you have a very big commercial company behind it, often a company that normally runs a lot of different fairs.
Right.
So maybe one week you have an art fair, the next week you have a baby fair, and the week after you have a car fair,
technology,
exactly.
Whatever.
And those are of course looking at how can you make a profit out of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that focus, then there's always the thought of are things making a surplus. And for us, it was with this model, you can actually sometimes say maybe it's not so much about making a profit or looking at the numbers. It's more about making great content and actually contributing to the art world in this region, because for us it's everything you're doing. It's really important that you feel that you are in a process of moving things to something else, like moving the boundaries of the Nordic art world.
Yeah.
Not maybe in this like directly, but sometimes also in the future.
That was one of the things I really enjoyed learning from Simon yesterday, was about how it's a non-profit, which is very rare in the fair, commercial fair world, and how the money goes back into creating cultural events, which are actually free. Yeah. So you have a commercially driven event, which provides free culture for the city.
Exactly, but that's a little bit. That's why we can do it like this. Is actually because the 5 founders. You could say we earn actually money by selling art. So we actually set up a booth where we can actually earn the money that we have to earn, and we don't have to earn money on the actual art fair. Whether it would be a normal art fair, what is company, whatever fair.
Sure,
company.
An event company.
Yeah, then they would have to earn money,
right?
Of course. But we don't have to. So you can say we will never get any money out of it, basically. And we haven't got any money out of it. It's still our company, but we don't.
Right, you don't have to answer to some sort of investment or say we need to make X amount of millions this year or whatever.
Exactly.
And that provides an opportunity to use instead any money to create a scene, more of a. I mean, that's the thing. You guys have made an event which hosts there was nothing that represented Nordic art in this sense, and that's why it's so interesting to me, because it is in fact a very different model than most art fairs, which are run by event companies. There's a shoe fair, then there's an art fair, and then there's a fashion fair. and it just goes like that.
Yeah. The difference is definitely, and it's not only that we don't have to earn the money. I think also that. Our way of thinking is also that if we create a nice umbrella to stand under, then it's good for the gallery. Mm-hmm. It's good for the art scene. It's good for the gallery. So that's actually enough for us, and I think that makes it's better for our business than we necessarily should earn money on a fucking art fair.
Right.
Everything changed when Københavns Kommune,
the municipality.
Yes, when they decided to support us, because for all other people, it's a signal that it's more than just a fair. A commercial fair for a little group interested. So it meant everything. It changed everything. From that moment, all the foundations, it was a sign saying that Copenhagen city can use art for something. And that means it's not just an event taking place during 3 days. It means something bigger for Copenhagen. So everything changed when they went in. It was fantastic with that support, and they have supported us in many ways. And everybody knows that you need these key partners to change things. It's not that many, but you need these key partners. So it's obvious for everybody else what it is about.
Have started to understand what we're doing and what our goal is to actually contribute to this Nordic region, because in the beginning, trust me, I've talked to a lot of people where they were like, but you're just a commercial art fair. and it always required a meeting where you talked about what is this and what's our ambition and what are we trying to do.
And it can be hard to get a meeting.
Yeah, but luckily actually after talking to people, they realize that we're not that dangerous, and maybe the non-commercial part of the art world can actually benefit from the commercial part and vice versa, because I think there's a tendency these days, also with so many, like the government cutting down on support, etc., etc. I think the art world has to look at new ways of how to collaborate, and I think if you look at it, if you look at the commercial side of the art world and also commercial companies, but aren't being afraid of actually maybe touching them or doing something with them, you can actually find some very strong connections. And I think Chart is a great example of this, without compromising the content of an art project, if it makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I'm really excited to see the fair this year.
Thank you.
5 years.
5 years. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to this special episode of the Undergang Armchair. The intro and outro music is kindly provided by Johnny Ripper, and today's interstitial music was provided by The Passion Hi-Fi. You can find links to their music and tons of other conversations with great people on our oral history of a website, undergang.net. If you like this show, we'd appreciate it if you'd just take a moment to leave a review on iTunes so others can find us. Thank you for joining us, and see you at the fair.